Good evening, everyone. Just a quick one. I just want to uh, make this video in order to help some students that have been asking this question: how can I have A1 in mathematics? Yes, it's possible. A1 in mathematics is very, very possible. So far, you know some of this instruction, and you have read very well, you have prepared very well for the exam you are going for, and you have these instructions at the back of your mind, these guidelines. This will help you a lot to avoid loss of marks and deductions of marks. So let's start with the general instruction. This is a marking guide from WAEC that was used in 2023. Okay, number one, marks are subdivided into method, that's M marks, accuracy A marks, and independent accuracy marks not preceded by M mark, that's B. So in all your questions, you have this MAB. That's how the marks are allotted. So you have the method, for method done, the accuracy, and the rest. Okay, let's look at number two. The M marks should be given for a particular stage if the method is correct. So when you follow through the right method of solving the particular problem you're given, then the M marks will be given to you. If the method is correct, that is, it would, if correctly carried out without numerical error, yield the right result. So far it does not matter the method, but what matters here is, does the method arrive at the right answer? So any method you make use of in achieving your result, so far it is going to give you the end result, the right result, then that M mark will be given to you. So okay, let's go to number three. You can see number three, deduct 2 marks for a misreading of the data. Now you may be given so many data, like in statistics, the data you are given. If you misread any of the data, that's a loss of 2 marks. If you misread any data that have been given to you, maybe from a diagram, and while you were writing, while you are trying to solve it, you wrote something else, then you would lose 2 marks because you have misread the data. So the students that misread some of the data that were given to him is going to lose 2 marks for misreading of the data. But let's quickly take this one. Deduct 1 mark for an answer not given to the degree of accuracy asked for. In take for example, in latitude and longitude, after you have found your distance given, the distance, you might be told to round off to the nearest degree, or to the nearest kilometer, or to 3 significant figures. Now in that case, if the student fails to round off his or her workings to this given degree of accuracy, then the student will lose 1 mark for not taking his or her answer to the degree of accuracy. And although this is always done just once in a question, so that means a student that continually forgets to round off his answer to the degree of accuracy required would have lost so many marks by the end of the exam. So We also deduct 1 mark for premature approximation, which does not considerably simplify the subsequent work. Now, in a case where you are told to solve some questions, and as you're solving, you have started approximating right from the beginning of the solution, this might give you errors. So it is always advised that you round up your work at the end of the final answer, or for a working that needs to maybe a working that has to do with another, making use of that value that you have before for another question. So in that case, you might need to round up that so that you can make use of it in the subsequent work. Okay, so but and this deduction is always done from mark A and mark B, and not from method marks. So make sure when you are approximating, you don't just approximate. You make sure you at least let your work be to 4 decimal places, depending on what you're doing, and at the end of it you can approximate, so that the errors can be prevented or limited. So now number 4, if you look at number 4, give 0 for results obtained for work that is indecipherable or wholly suppressed. So this is WSO. You can see the WSO here. So that means while working, if you happen to have a very bad handwriting and your examiner can't see what you have written, or you have muddled up the work, or the work is not legible enough for the examiner to see, the examiner can decide to just circle the whole thing you have done and score 0 for that particular question you have answered. So because he or she cannot stress him or herself just for one student. Mind you, there are so many students that he or she will be marking for. So that's your own question that he cannot see, might take him time and might waste time. So in order to avoid time wastage, the examiner can circle the work and give 0 for it. Okay, now another thing is we deduct 1 mark for essential working that is omitted. If an essential working is omitted, the candidate will lose 1 mark for an essential working omitted. That's OEW -1. So, and that's why we advise students that while working, make sure all your important steps are shown. Don't jump some major steps because you are rushing or you are trying to meet up with time. Make sure all the major workings or essential steps are shown while solving your question. Now also, let's look at number 6. The number 5 concerns the examiner more. So number 6, for geometric proofs, except when otherwise stated above, deduct 1 for an essential reason omitted. You remember that in geometric proofs, like the plane geometry and circle geometry, after you have solved a particular line, if you have solved a particular line or a particular step has been solved, you will always need to put the geometric proof. Let's say you have found that the angle in a semicircle is 90. At the side of it, you write angle in a semicircle. If that student does not do this, if he has omitted that proof, that reason, or the reason is wrong, then the student loses 1 mark for an essential reason omitted or for a wrong reason given. Though this is not more than once in a question. Now let's look at number 7. You deduct 1 mark for omission of units or for wrong units, but this should not be done more than once in one question. Let's say we are told to look for the area of a circle or the area of a rectangle, and we know the area of a rectangle is length times breadth. And it's given to us in centimeters. After finding after multiplying the length and the breadth, we have 400 centimeters squared. For not writing centimeters squared there, you are going to lose, the student or the candidate will lose 1 mark. Or let's say while solving, the student forgot that it was centimeter and wrote meter square. For having a wrong unit, it is also a deduction of 1 mark. So that is for number 7. Then for 8, if a question is attempted more than once, mark all and record the marks for that which has gained the lowest mark. Let's say a student has answered question 1 and felt like, okay, let me try it this way. He answered it in another way, and they are having different answers. The examiner will mark the 2 questions that he has solved, the 2 method of or the 2 ways he has solved question 1, and will record that particular method which has the lowest mark. Let's say he solved the first one and he got an 8/12 mark, and the second one he got a 10 or 11/12 marks. The examiner will record 8/12 marks for that question that has been done twice. So that's so you have to take note of this. You don't answer a question more than once, and if you are answering it more than once, then it is very good for you to cross that question out, the particular one you are not interested in using as your right answer. Okay, so let's move to question 8. Though this concerns the examiner more, though if you answer attempt more than the required, okay, sorry, this is number 9. If more questions are attempted than the rubric allows, delete the marks for those extra questions which have gained the lowest mark. So if you let's say we are told to for mathematics, we are to answer 5 questions from the first part, 5 questions from the second part. So if the student answered 11 questions, so all the questions will be marked, but the one with the lowest will be removed from the number of questions. So that is how it is there. So now let's move to number 10. Okay, now it is also worthy of note, in case you let's say that in part 2 the candidate is only required to answer more than 5 questions, just 5 questions in part 2. Now if the candidate has answered 5 questions in part 2, so the examiner can ignore other questions, and by writing MQA, that is more questions answered than the rubric allows. So then, okay, number 10. A candidate would fail to draw diagram for questions that require diagrams must be scored 0 whether the solution is correct or not. This is very important. when you have a question that requires diagram, let's say a bearing question, a question on elevation and depression, a question on latitude and longitude, a question on Venn diagram, and the diagrams are not drawn, whether the candidate has solved it correctly or not. But because that question requires a diagram and the student has failed to draw the required diagram for that question, the student has scored 0 for that question answered. So that is very important for you all to listen to learn. Don't questions that require diagrams, make sure you draw the diagrams, else you will lose the whole mark for that question. So it is a waste solving a question that requires diagram without the diagram being there. Okay, down for number 11, candidates who use non-mathematical symbols such as star, slash, and raised to power must be scored 0 in such questions unless required by the question. We don't use, in mathematics we don't use star to represent the multiplication sign, neither do we use the slash to represent the division sign, or the raised to power to represent the index form of a question, so of a particular number. So any student who writes these three symbols will be scored 0 in such questions, except for questions like binary operation that requires you using star. That in that case it is required by the question. Else, you writing this in your solution, maybe you are writing star for times, then you have scored 0 for that question. Okay, now so these are just few total marks that you're going to get from mathematics theory is 100 marks. Okay, now you have to note that the 100 marks is divided this way. Number 1, you have 5 compulsory questions, and these 5 compulsory questions have 8 marks each, so 8 times 5 gives you 40. Then in the second part 2, you have 8 questions to answer 5, and each question answered carries 12 marks. 12 times 5 gives us 60, so 60 plus 40 equals 100. So a student that wants to have an A in mathematics must have prepared very well for the exam and also follow the right instruction, read the rubrics, follow the instruction of the exam, follow the instruction, the guidelines that will help you that will prevent you from losing marks anyhow. And then also you must have practiced so many questions using your past questions to as an aid to learning. On this note, I wish you a wonderful examination.